Warm greetings. Welcome to today's session on women in architecture. The discussion on women in architecture is about understanding the nuances of being women in the profession, and it is placed in the larger purview of being in the diverse field of the built environment for those women who started their career with architecture education. The session is conducted with the support of Eco Development and Research Cell, a not-for-profit initiative that is run by environmental design consultants, Ahmedabad. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava, and I'm the host for the session, as well as I represent environmental design consultants. This is a project which I have taken up with the due diligence to understand women engaging in practice and pedagogy of the built environment. Importantly, to celebrate the presence and participation of women in shaping the built environment. The objectives for here is to learn, document, and disseminate the biographical journey of women who choose to practice or research or get into education or do arts and activism, a mix of them, and actually conduct a multi-transdisciplinary approach to chart their career path. Through the study, the intention is also to bring forth the critical points that need to be addressed at individual, institutional, and collective levels as what makes or breaks or tweaks the career of women architects in the country. The study shall implicitly allow us to understand how women maneuver their lives to find their purpose of being, which will also explicitly help us build role models for the current and future generation. It's a call for action to realize the need for equitable profession, as well as in order to advance towards an equitable and sustainable built environment. The methodology we have taken for the study in women in architecture is called autoethnography, which in simple words means their life journey and the researcher's pen, which is me here. The method thus incorporates informal interaction followed by semi-structured, open-ended interaction, which is this, which we are going to have today with a wonderful woman on board today for the interaction. We have with us today a very well-known, I will say, practitioner, academician, Rajshree Rajmohan, who is graduate from CEPT University and has her postgraduate in Indian aesthetics. She's founder of ARA, Architecture Research Atelier. She's also senior architect at Chandra Mohan Associates, Tiruvananthapuram since 2008. As a firm believer of integrating multiple modes of architectural practice, she has mentored design studios and lectured extensively at architecture and design institutions. She is recipient of the Gold Leaf IIA Kerala State Award in 2021 for her research, which lies specifically on marginalized communities and gender studies, just to name a few, beyond the many hats she is actually wearing. Welcome, Rajshree Rajmohan, and I'm going to keep it simple from here on and just call you Rajshree. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time, because this has been extremely difficult research for me, where women themselves don't find it an important topic to discuss. And for me, just to give you a disclaimer here, we are more interested about Rajshree, the girl, than the girl, what she does. Conversation, we will also dwell into how you look at architecture, how you define, but more through you as an individual. Thank you so much. And keep it easy on yourself. It will be very simple interaction. And I hope you are fine that we are recording. We are live also. Yeah. You may be heard and listened and viewed by your future as well as your previous research. Shall we move on?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much, Mansi. This must be the first time I think someone is actually going to be asking me about my personal journey. Usually it's about my views on architecture or pedagogy, etc., or practice. So this is kind of new to me, but thank you so much. But I think this is very important. I did go through the previous interviews others had given. It was wonderful to learn about how their lives have been in this profession. And this is something that's actually missing from the research altogether. I mean, what we get to read. And it's wonderful to see also with time that now we have, our voices are actually getting recorded. Whether it is of importance
Yes,
or not is
that's
a
the whole
different.
purpose.
So at last, somebody is listening. Somebody is listening. So this is a huge jump from where I have of things that I have encountered so far. So yes, so I'm so
We
looking
all have
forward.
encountered, and that's the whole purpose. Yeah, I think
Yes.
one of the most important aspect for me, as you rightly mentioned, that that woman in the profession exists. It's a different discussion altogether. What they do, how they do, what kind of work they are doing. But one thing we all agree that something which has not been recorded well in the history is the presence and the contribution of women in making this civilization, and that can be extended to our profession also. All right, so let's get started to a very simple conversation, and I would like to take you back to your high school days. And that is the first question as what brought you to architecture?
Um, I would I would say I was very fortunate in many ways. At home, as growing up, there was an entire my house was full of music. My parents introduced me to music from all genres. And then my father's younger brother, Chandramohan, with whom I practice today, was very much an integral part of our household. So he brought in ideas of design, art, color, graphics into my everyday conversation. So for me, design, art, and music was the general staple of day-to-day conversations that were there at home. So by the time but I still those were the times where the pressures, this I'm talking about 80s. I was born in 71. So this is in 80s growing up, the pressure was either you become an engineer or a doctor. I mean, that was
Yes.
the, we had an architect in the house, the focus was these two professions only. So I thought maybe I would be a surgeon because your science marks are good. But sometime after the 10th board exam, I read one book which belonged to my uncle. He had given me a book to read, Victor Papanik's Design for a Better World.
Mm-hmm.
And that summer vacation, that book, it kind of changed everything that I wanted to do. And I just decided when I finished the book that I'm going to be an architect and nothing else, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
nothing else. There was no other choice. So then I decided to pursue that and later on applied in SEPT after I finished my 12th. And yeah, and then that's how it all got started. But I was very keen about architecture because I knew what architects do. I was not blank about what the profession entailed. I knew how difficult it was. I also knew, I was told that there aren't many women in this field. So you will be always surrounded by men and they will be hostile. And but you see, I kind of fixated that I am not capable of doing anything else. So this was it, and or nothing. I know it's like that. So that's how I got into, and luckily I cleared all the entrance tests, and I got into SEPT. And I was very fortunate to have the best of teachers when I was studying and
Yes.
who mentored me beautifully. And also, I had my uncle who would kind of take me through his sites and his own design projects. So I got to get into design very quickly. So I enjoyed the whole
Mm-hmm.
act of practicing. And being in SEPT
Mm-hmm.
also implied that we had the fine arts. There were the Kanuria Fine Arts Center, and there were the Hateh Singh
Yeah.
Museum, Art Museum. So all of that was all part and parcel of our whole education system. So eventually, I got drawn into printmaking, and I joined Kanuria after I finished my graduation. I did that for 2 years.
Interesting. Interesting. I
Yeah.
will take you back to your graduation days again. Although you told a little bit about it. So while you were in your graduation, and I can see from your year of birth because I'm from the same year, and when we were studying architecture, probably in different schools. How was it at SEPT? I mean, I know you had the blessings of Varki, Chaya, and all these people at that time, Doshi, as you know.
Yes, yes,
But just to focus on the gender side of it, because after all, these were also men, Raje,
yes.
mm, KB Jain. I mean, I can keep on naming them, being having also studied later at SEPT. How were the students' composition and the teachers' response about gender? Was there a discussion? Did you ever feel that it is? I can also understand that having a background where you were already knowing the what the profession entails in terms of gender little bit, but can you just recall things at your undergraduate and postgraduate? Probably we can take both the education together. That it brought to your notice that being a woman is going to be different in the profession, or it was like no particular notice on gender. I'm asking this question because this is something which also I'm reflective about my own life journey when I talk to my guests. I never felt until final year that it is going to be different than being a woman in the profession. I will be honest on that. I'm final year bachelor's.
I think
It hit
in
me afterwards.
Sept, Sept was essentially we had only male teachers completely. And the first teacher we had
Yes,
was
I recall that.
Madhvi Desai, who taught
Meena
us
Jain.
research methodology. No, she would teach she would
Hmm.
come only for juries. So there were the few women teachers
Hmm.
who would come for juries for the postgrad courses. But essentially for the undergrad, we only had
Hmm.
a whole battalion of male teachers. And
Hmm.
within the campus itself, there was a predominant idea that women would eventually not practice, So the number of women were relatively lesser,
Hmm.
slightly lesser than the number of boys were in our batch. But the idea was that there was this undercurrent that women would anyway not really get down to practicing.
Hmm.
Not so vocally said, but
Hmm.
definitely this
Hmm.
was the undercurrent was
Undertone,
there.
yes.
Yeah, so that was there, but I was kind of very clear that I would be practicing because I already had my uncle's practice to kind of which I would go back to every vacation. So I was kind of very clear about how things were put together and the whole craft of making things. So it used to irritate me
Hmm.
quite a bit at that time because today body shaming, today gender issues, people are far more sensitized in all these institutions. I would like to believe it
Yes.
that way. And you have more women teachers also in terms of presence, but it wasn't so at
Yes.
that time. So I could sense that some of my colleagues were not taking Professor Madhvi as seriously as I was, but I was so happy to see her. I was really happy to see her because
And she's now pioneer in women in architecture.
yes, and I think she took the first batch was us. Ours was the
Hmm.
first batch where she actually taught. I think that's she taught us research methodology, and it kind of again that was a very turning point because I enjoyed her course so much that eventually it became a part of my everyday even now because I still engage in research. I still keep in touch with her, and she's one of my closest mentors that I've had over the years. So yes, and we did have. I think we had Ismat also, but she would come only for
Hmm.
juries, and that's all.
Hmm.
Even Meenakshi Jain could come for
Hmm.
juries. Nothing else. No, you never see them taking a studio or conducting or being a studio lead or anything of the sort. And I'm so glad it has changed. And I think my dissertation which
Hmm.
we had at the end was the first dissertation
It
on
has
gender,
changed.
was the first one on gender.
Mm-hmm.
So there was
Wow.
none written before that, and there was so much opposition when I took that subject
Hmm.
from my batch, my friends in the institute, as well as from the faculty members who thought there was nothing to study about or there was nothing much to research about, and there was hardly anything in the library then. But of course, now things have changed drastically.
Of course. We are seeing a change over nearly 30 years now. We're talking. talking about
Yes.
30 years, and it's a long time. And you remind me of the way not only women, but water itself was like this, in SEP, that water is not a subject of studying when I did my master's
Yes.
in urban design. So it was like, why to study water? You are in urban design. So, so I can relate how difficult it will be to even study gender. And interestingly, when we talk about gender study, the focus is always on women. And that is something also I'm contesting through this kind of research, that this is the very particular on women in architecture. I wish someone studies men in architecture and tells us how we have completely messed up with the built environment and the cities. But I think I keep it for someone else to do that. And I was very conscious to not use the word gender and focus only on women. And this is something which we also have to go past, like gender is not about women. It took long time. Now people make that difference in terms of gender and sexuality. I would like to go back to a few more years after your undergrad and postgrad, and I can understand. If you don't mind, I would like to say this, that you had a privilege of an exposure of the profession, and you were also
Yes.
going back and forth to the practice with your family members part of it. But I would still like to understand, when when you entered the mainstream, I will say practice, and you had much clarity to do practice. How was your initial years? I mean, being a student and working with uncle or family members is very different than being a professional and working.
Yes. Initially, after I finished, I did not go back because his practice was based in Trivandrum, but I did not
Hmm.
shift to Trivandrum immediately. I went, that was also, I think, mid 90s when there was a lot of communal turmoil in Ahmedabad.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I was drawn into human rights work and I became part of
Hmm.
PUCL, People's Union for Civil
Wow.
Liberties. So I kind of completely shifted gear. So I thought that was my calling at that time. And
Hmm.
that's what I did. Actually, I was part of fact-finding teams and I was also doing fighting cases on various issues which are all related to human rights violations by
Hmm.
the Commerce Chamber, a Chamber of Commerce, as well as the then ruling political party. So that
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
what I
Hmm.
was kind of engaged in. But at this, then eventually I got a job as a junior architect in NID, National Institute of Design, and I worked there for another 2 years. I was on
Hmm.
2 year contract. I did that, and I moved
Hmm.
to Trivandrum only much later in I think 2007, 2008.
Hmm.
So after my second child, I moved here. But of course, as you said, I was practicing there. I was practicing independently because of my activism, and it was difficult for me to keep a job, a 9 to 5
Hmm.
job in any office. So
I can imagine
I
that.
had to do freelance work because whatever work activism I was doing was all volunteering work. So there
Hmm.
was no income from there. So I'd have to do freelance jobs. So I took freelance projects. I had interiors, and yes, I was working on my own. And yeah, those were very, very difficult days. I was kind of broke most of the time. But yeah, there was a lot of satisfaction. And because you felt that the work that you were doing, running around the courts, getting information, doing fact finding, writing reports was the need for the hour at that time. Yeah. So I did continue with my practice, but in my practice took a rather a second stage. I mean, it was not the primary focus. It was just to help me
I
support
can very
my.
much relate. Hmm. I can very much relate, not only from my own trajectory, but also when I am hearing all the women in this interaction, I see many of our guests have actually taken their inner call in practicing, and that is another aspect of this research, where I am also in search of what exactly is architecture, and do we need to delimit the very definition of architecture from it's only building the building. which is
Exactly.
what is the education focuses on. And I'm sure your undergraduate thesis also helped you to take the larger canvas of
True.
human rights and, of course, the other issues. I mean, like in my case, it is water. And people still think why I'm talking about women and when I'm working on water. But I think this is again something about inner call. Just to understand from you, because you mentioned about having children and early career, Ahmedabad, which I feel, having traveled across the country, still better for women as compared to other parts of the country in terms
Yes,
of working and
it is.
practice. And
It
you
is.
slightly mentioned that it was hard days, but I would still like to understand from you, when you say it was difficult days, was gender issue coming into the personal front, into the professional front, or it was just like uh, every early career, whether it is male, female, or other genders, they have to go through that grind. But I think in
Yes.
your case, you had that additional part of, doing the human rights activism. And what was exactly, I mean, how were you really driving this multi-wheel life?
I To be very honest, sometimes when I think I have been doing very dangerous work, hard in the sense because of the challenges I had. I was not politically connected. I was not extremely
Hmm,
rich or to kind of being able to fund whatever I wish to do. And so it is
hmm,
basically trust that you kind of connect with people who are like-minded and equally as broke as you are, but they're all charged up by the fact that
hmm,
must do something to help this group of people who are in need. And so that was the only driving force, to be very honest. So that's what
hmm,
was hard. Because perhaps if I had more
hmm,
connections and you feel rather isolated, and you're supposed to you've been trained as an architect to build and put spaces together and organize, etc. You're not really talked about, we never read about legalities, and you don't know how to fight a case. I still remember the first time I went to the High Court, I was petrified because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whom to talk to. And all I knew is I knew the issue that I was going to wanted to address, so was a genuine one. And thankfully, eventually, I found lawyers who I think they took up my case because I was so earnest and so willing to kind of do the homework and do all the background work to help them win the case, and which we did. We eventually won all the cases that we fought. So yeah, so and in PUCL, I was the youngest member. All the other members were at least 45 or 50, and I was 24. So there is certain amount of energy you have when you are in your 20s, and there is an idealism that I can change everything, which it's still there actually, to be very honest. And that's I think what that book, Victor Papanik's book, talked about also, as to that you need to help. The design can actually help, or design thinking can help people, humanity at large. And I purely believe that. I still believe it ardently. I still feel all of us who are in the design field have an ability to make a very positive change, not for an elite small group, but for a larger group of people. I mean, everyone whom we touch. So the design, it may not be a built space at all. It need not be built. It can be my own ability to critically evaluate that I can help someone think better. And that's what I mentioned earlier also, is in terms of there is not one way of practicing architecture. Research is another. What you are doing right now is an architectural practice too, of collating data.
absolutely.
Of these are valuable stories. You never know who is going to listen to this and when in time, and who this would motivate to do something different for the community where they are in. So I think all kinds of work is very important. Writing is important, as just as important as drawing is. So it's not really only
Yes.
about building. It's not about building only. And so yeah, that's what kept me more. That's what I when I meant hard. It's just that I felt many a times alone because I did not know. I did not know how to
Mm,
do things, but I learned along the way, and
mm.
but I was very convinced. I think that conviction is necessary, and perseverance is also essential, which is like you can't just give up, no matter what the odds are against you.
Absolutely.
So some of the cases that we
Absolutely.
fought during that time were against very big people. I mean, in terms of politics and money, and the Chamber of Commerce in Ahmedabad means they had innumerable amount of political and financial clout. And to win a case against them was a humongous. So we had to be foolproof. So that's what we
Mm.
did. So we did better homework. We had just one lawyer. They had 13. So, I mean, so that you are, but you can win. You can win if you persevere. So I'm an optimist actually. So, and I don't give up
And
too
that's
easily.
interesting to know. For me,
So
it is
even
very
when I
interesting to see, yeah, to hear
So even
from
with
you.
this,
Uh,
so
Go ahead, please.
sorry I interrupted.
No, no,
No, I
please
was
go
wondering
ahead.
even
Please go ahead.
this the whole subject on gender when I took it up in for my dissertation, the amount
Mm,
of criticism and ridicule I faced was enormous. And today nobody would.
mm.
But at that time, yes, there was a lot of criticism, and there was only one person who eventually argued in my favor and said, "Okay, I'll take her, though I mean, like I'm pressed for time. I'll take her as my student," and offered to guide me. So, and he had to face a lot of criticism too on my behalf because he was guiding me. So, which was kind of bold on his part. So that was Neelkanth.
That's very interesting. Of course, and I'm also Nilkant Chaya's student. Again, taking water, which was not. So we do need people who are not only visionary, but who also have a broad understanding of the profession and the subject.
Yes,
I want to
yes,
pick another interesting piece from your narration so far. And I want to also update you on something which happened with me recently. So, just to tell you that we have moved a long way, but it is still far. So, there was a student who studied my life in her final year, some research
mhm,
project, and she did women in architecture in her research. And she got so convinced after this interaction that she wanted to take up a thesis on women in architecture, and it was not approved as a thesis because it does not have architecture. So, I mean, through these conversations, as I mentioned, the discussion on what is architecture, who is architect, where do we draw the line, becomes very interesting. And in your case, as I see that it is about people. And interestingly, when we are talking about architecture education, we talk about building for people, but somewhere the people are nowhere in the scene. It eventually becomes buildings. And I hope there is equal importance given to people and buildings. And I think subjects like sociology, psychology, all these subjects have to come into picture.
yes,
Equity, all. Anyway, we
yes,
come back to our discussion here. You also mentioned that after some years you moved back to Trivandrum and Thiruvananthapuram, difficult for me to pronounce.
yes.
And
Trivandrum is
what
easy.
was it? Yes, yes. What was it? And did you get into full-time architecture, so-called designing buildings, or what made you come back, and what was the new life like coming back? So it's almost like we become migrants to our own cities, our own place. How
Yes.
was it for you, and what did you eventually restart there?
Though I was born in Calicut, which is North Kerala, I did all my schooling and education happen in Gujarat. So I spent 36 years in Gujarat, which I still feel is
Okay.
my home,
Hmm.
actually. So So coming back here
Mm.
means I still, my language had a very different accent. So I had to start from scratch many ways. Of course, my uncle, being in my uncle's office again, helped a lot because I already have a base then to start with. And otherwise, it was uphill task in the first 1 or 2 years, because when I moved here, I came with two of my kids who were also, son was 5 and my daughter was 1. So they were very little, so they needed a lot of
Oh.
care. So eventually, I used to take them to the office, and I
Mm.
used to work with them. So at that time, I also started off with small reading programs, etc. I sometimes feel activism, you can't get out of it. So you try and get
Yes.
back onto that somehow. So I kind of felt that there was
You
a need
look
for,
for opportunities.
yes, we do. So we started in our office, had a lovely courtyard, my uncle's office. So we started a reading session in the once every Saturday. It's called
Mm.
Vayanishala, and we would take a text and we would have a small discussion for architects and students to revisit these architectural texts. So that also went on. Then we did several programs like that. So that went on for a long
Mm.
time. So yes, it was in the office. He is the principal architect. So what do I exactly do for him? I don't know, but I do dabble with all stages in terms of design discussions, client meetings, the usual drill that happens, site visits on and drawings, working drawings. I enjoy detailing projects, so that's something it's very close to me. So yes, from concept development to here. And teaching started much later. So I started teaching only from 2011, 10 or 11. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I go as a visiting faculty. So, and
Mm-hmm.
that also happened
So,
just by chance
uh,
because somebody, yes.
no, no, go ahead, please go ahead. I think there's a time lapse
So
between us, so please continue.
yes. So I think, yeah, so I've been teaching as a visiting faculty to several institutions actually here and there. Then I also I ended up back in NID, National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, again for as a visiting faculty there, which I continue. Again in August, I'll be going there. I have a session for BDES as well as the MDES students, where I talk about architecture and space and how do you manifest an idea and things like that. So yeah, I've been teaching for a while
Mm-hmm.
now.
Interesting. Interesting. So now, as you were maturing in the profession, and of course continuing with your little activism, family life, and research, and of course teaching, I would like to understand from you, having known your, or your relative, your uncle, as well as your brother, as you had mentioned in the beginning. Do you see a difference in the way a woman practices and a man practices?
Definitely, there is a huge difference. I personally
So
feel there is
maybe
a
you can
difference.
highlight on business and design approach in with some
Uh,
simple examples.
Perhaps it is different in different places. Cultural upbringing,
Mhm.
etc., makes a huge difference also. Because my uncle,
Of course.
is from another generation. He is far more senior to me. So, and he's been practicing for the last 55 years. So, he had
Mhm.
comes with a totally different way of looking at things. And today also, even
Mhm.
if you see in terms of, I am coming from another generation, so we see
Mhm.
things very differently, definitely differently. There is
Indeed.
I think there is more, maybe because of my upbringing and my activism work, I'm more connected. I would know all the workers in the site. If I go there, I know
Mm.
everybody very well. I immediately connect with people easily, whereas he keeps a distance. Maybe that is necessary for him, but I don't feel the
Mhm.
need for that. So I'm constantly looking out for women workers on sites, because
Mhm.
I'm very conscious of the fact that when I go to an apartment design project, when I go
Yes,
there,
and their
there will
children.
be, and there are very few women, and more or less everybody, the workers are predominantly male here, and so are the engineers. Very rarely do I see a woman civil engineer, etc., on site. So I see a women workers, and I usually go there and talk to them, etc., to so that they don't feel left out because I know what means to be on the other side. So yes, there is a difference in the approach. There's a difference in the way we see things, the way we like to get things done. So I tend to be more flexible. He isn't. So yeah, we work around that. But I suppose others who are with other genders, who are with the same age group, things would be far more fluid or easy to kind of, there won't be so much of a contrast in working methods. But yes, there is definitely a difference. And I think since I have come in, I make sure that everyone feels like a part of a family. I mean, I kind of like to hold everyone together. uh, it's just is it a maternal instinct kicking in? I don't know. But yes, I do tend to like to hold people together. I don't like to let them go. So, uh, and our office also is a very flexible space in terms of timings, pregnancies, etc. We may accommodate all those kind of personal challenges men and women go through. So yes, we are very, very flexible in our office, which is not the case in most offices that I have seen, where they don't make leeway for that. We let people work from home. We also have a place for people to stay back and then so that they can visit. We are a 5 day office, I mean 5 day a week office, so that they can go back to have their Saturday, Sunday off. It's difficult, but yes, that's
Hmm.
how it is right now. So that they have some quality family time also. So that makes a
And
difference. We
not too
also
much
pay everybody
overtime.
well.
I hope not too
No,
much
not
overtime, because that's also
no,
a big
and
problem in our profession.
yes, and we also cook together, and so we have our meals together. So it's a nice laid back office, not very efficient, I suppose, but but yeah, we all stick around together. So
It's
most
a
people
living
who I've been,
office.
yes,
It's a
it
living
is. I
office.
feel but I don't think this is how it should be. But I think there's a feminist way of practicing architecture also, which is also
Hmm.
talking about things beyond just a certain kind of efficiency and dates and deadlines, where you do have a conversation on music in the studio.
Hmm.
And so I think this is not the most efficient way of doing it, but I don't know how do you define efficiency also? If I
Hmm.
feel everybody is feeling well, I think then the office is efficient. It's not
Hmm.
really the
It is.
number of projects and the number of Instagram posts that we do, etc. Or I don't know. I'm really confused about that, but I'm very clear that I think our office is doing that laid back way of doing things, of having conversations in the office about architecture and aesthetics and music is as important as actually meeting up with a deadline, because the deadlines will always
Hmm.
be there and everybody wants everything yesterday. So there is no end to
Yes,
that. There's no end to that.
absolutely.
There
Absolutely.
are a lot of these, and there's a lot of projects actually. Anyone who's practicing knows not everything is ever going to be built, but the
Hmm.
conversation that they generate is also very, very important. So I
Indeed.
think what we see is the built things, but I think it's unfortunate that offices don't post or do Instagram pictures of the engaging conversations they have in their office about a film that was
Absolutely.
released, about a music that was playing. That's also important. So I think that's necessary. So our office is small, but inefficient in the popular way of looking at things. But I find that is very comfortable. I think a lot
It's
of people do find
redefined.
that place very comfortable.
It's redefined, I will say, and human lives matter. If I have to put a hashtag into it.
Yes, real life, it does matter. It makes a lot of difference, actually.
Yes.
Yes, I'm not so sure how long our office will last, but I think each day is kind of very memorable.
Hmm.
And many of our projects don't get built, which I think is okay, but the conversations and the sketches and the amount of work we do behind each is of very valuable to me. And we don't have
Indeed.
much of a social media presence, so we are not even distracted with all of those those
You
jobs.
have physical media presence right in the
Yeah,
office.
physical. So if you want a conversation, come over. So yes, and
Well put.
I have started this ARA, that is ARA, that's an
Mhm.
architecture and research atelier, as a small wing in our office, which will
Mhm.
focus primarily on documentation and
Mhm.
documentation as well as design for marginalized communities primarily. So this is something I just started this year. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know how that will go. So this we're planning to open up discussions on what architecture actually is and what does it mean
Mhm.
today in this
Mhm.
fast-moving kind of, I'm seeing a city like a beautiful city, Trivandrum is changing so rapidly. So, and a
Mhm.
lot of these landmarks disappearing, a certain kind of way of doing things and making things disappearing. So, yeah, we wanted to start a conversation on that. So that's how that little office has been started within our own main office premises.
Interesting. You use the word conversation so beautifully and so heavily, I must say. And the movement which I am also running in water is water conversations for water conservation. So I am saying, okay, before you jump onto the ground and do something, first let's talk about it. And we have been running it through W for W Foundation for now 4 years, where we invite speakers to talk about water. It's just walk and talk water. And I think you raised an important point on having this conversation, and I honestly don't find much conversation happening in our profession. We are not just sitting and discussing, and I'm also so keen to see how Madhvi is also taking it up in her own way in Women in Architecture through FCA Collective. So it's extremely important that we talk about people, we talk about women, we talk about buildings also, we talk about children for that matter. And it's important that humans are brought right at the center of the whole profession. Otherwise, we are just so focused on making buildings. Let me just move on to the next question here, and very tricky one. And you may again have to scratch your memory a little bit. And um, being a woman, we are all constantly facing challenges, and we tend, as a human, we have a tendency to remember challenges more than opportunities. But you have very well articulated the nice things that you have also faced. But I want to pose a question on, have there been moments, and if you would like to share with us, where in some situation being a woman architect was challenging in a setting, or and another situation where you found that being a woman in that setting was actually an opportunity that you could exploit and make things better for the situation? Both.
Uh, to be a woman at times, at least lately, I kind of sometimes feel it's difficult to do networking. Networking
Hmm.
in terms of in terms of looking for projects or competing for projects, etc. Where at times I feel it is difficult for me to just go into a bar and entertain somebody because I don't feel comfortable. And so those kind of problems I do feel. I think there is, if I had to go meet a builder, I think I would think 10 times before doing it because I'm not even interested. Maybe because I'm not
Hmm.
interested, or maybe because I just feel it's a completely strange men sitting in that
Hmm.
place, and I'll have to actually go there and make a conversation. I usually do end up doing it, and it turns out very well. But I'm not so very comfortable doing it. Somehow I feel if
Hmm.
even if there was one woman there, I would have been like, okay, fine. I would have just felt better. So that is one place where I think when we have to pitch for work or pitch for your own projects or get a new one. So that's when I feel being a woman sometimes feels a little deterrent. Otherwise, one of the main things is juggling time because then you have two children to take care of, and I was single parenting all through. So juggling that as well as my teaching as well as my practice meant that um, I had to really choose what to do.
Hmm.
There are times when you cannot take your children up on the stage and give your speech or give your lecture, etc. So there are
Mm.
innumerable times I've had to take my daughter, because she's still too small, on my shoulder, put her to sleep, and then go up and give a talk. So I've had to
Mm.
do that, and I many a times I used to meet a lot of resistance. We don't wonder why you're bringing your children, but I don't have anywhere else to put them. So, and I didn't, and I know that my children were happiest when they were with me. So I would take them
Mm.
everywhere to sites. Sometimes I used to think that was not the right thing. So there's a little guilt on that part of it. So, as being a woman, yes, definitely it is very tough to balance all of these things. There is no balancing actually. You just like just choosing whether, okay, then you have to miss this meeting, you have to miss this call for a conference, you have to miss so many things because your children have their school and a parent teacher meeting, which you are so bored about, but you have to attend that. So, there were a lot of sacrifices, innumerable sacrifices I've had to make in terms of my career choices, primarily because I had to think about children also. And what where it things were right, I think there were so many advantages. I always felt like being a woman immediately helped diffuse any kind of tension that was there in the room, because then I could kind of I think because maybe we are women, we are good listeners, or I don't know, but we kind of can understand our empathize with others far better or far more effectively than I think most of the men that I have encountered. So I used to sense that difference, so that I would listen to them and I would be able to kind of resolve the tensions far more effectively. So that I have always seen that being a woman has a huge advantage, because I think we empathize better. We are not as egoistic as we don't really want to prove, because we are already very content. We know what we are capable of doing. So there is no point to be proven. So there's a confidence that comes with that. And also being a woman means you know that you are going to be the only woman in that place. So you do
Yes.
homework. You're going to do homework so well before you have come there. You are better prepared than anyone across. So because you know that you cannot fail there. So you have to succeed. So, and you have to be uh, well read. You have to know your what you are going to speak about the project and everything that comes in its periphery. And you've also done a background study of the people whom you are going to meet. So there's a lot of homework that we do before we enter a space, whether it's a meeting room or a
Mm.
site or a boardroom, etc. So that's a huge advantage we have. And I know most of the men don't really need to do that at all. They just walk in
Mm.
and then they lose, because then other than raising their voice they can't really do much. There's no substance. So then
Yes.
there is that, it comes with that confidence because we do that homework, because we know that we don't have another choice. So when we have to speak, we have to be very crystal clear, and we should know what we are talking about. So that makes a difference. So that is the advantage I think women have in any space. And yes, there
Absolutely.
are different difficulties because we have to manage so many things all at the same time. And one always feels one should have done that or should. So there's always this guilt tripping we get into. I hope the
Or
other women don't have to do that. I seriously hope
yeah.
they don't have to guilt trip themselves as much as I had.
I think we all carry that superwoman syndrome crown
Yes,
on us, and and then we are overburdened, or probably we
we
carry the
are
guilt.
overburdened. And
Mm.
we get burnt out actually in the whole process,
Mm.
because there is no time for self-care.
Mm.
That whole idea, I wouldn't even have had time to kind of even think in those lines, because there's
Mm.
always somebody else's need which was far more important than mine. So yeah, so those were difficult years. Today it is, I'm now 54 today. So things are a whole lot easier because my children have finished their
Mm.
kind of schooling and graduation, etc. So then it's now I'm kind of free to kind of do as I want to. So, and with
Mhm.
my time, I have more time to dabble with whole lot of other things. So yeah, so that's why I started it now and not much earlier. Something I wanted to start decades ago. And ultimately I just did not have the time and energy to do it. But I started it just this year. So now
I
I can
can
travel
completely
without,
understand.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, women are going through this on a
Yeah,
daily basis.
absolutely. But the thing is, having not documented these issues, I think the future generation also doesn't come to know. And probably all genders are more prepared when they know that this is a trajectory or the journey which is going to come. Then people can prepare better. And probably that is another question which I have towards the end. But we are close, very not far from closure. Just few questions here and there now. You have been in the profession, teaching and research, and I'm sure in 30 years, both of us have seen a huge change in the way
Yes.
gender, woman, profession, research, especially from the woman angle. I'm asking this question, the change has arrived. And do you notice a major, a serious change in the positive way or in the negative way in terms of gender inclusivity in the profession or in the education? I mean,
It's
in your
positive.
context,
I
of
think
course.
it's very positive now. You have more women teachers, you have more role models. Now when you, even in the studios, when I teach, I make sure that the case studies they take are by women architects. Otherwise, we had heard of no women architects during when I was studying.
Absolutely. And
It's not that they
that
were
was
not there. It's not that they were
that
not
is
there.
exactly one of the it was also one of the reason why I started doing this documentation, that they are there, it's just that they are not visible.
And so this became a part of my studio teaching also, where we take case studies done by women. We also talk about women architects and the kind of work they have done and the different ways in which they have made a difference. So, and initially these kind of, and also a whole lot of books on gender have come in, also based, written by, in the Indian context, by Indian authors. So, which itself is a huge jump we have made in the last 30 years. So there are a lot of things that we can kind of talk about. And at least now, I can't imagine any interview of this kind happening 30 years back. Nobody would
No, me neither.
nobody would want to be interested. Nobody would be interested or even consider speaking to a woman architect or an architect based because or ask questions the kind you are asking. It wouldn't have happened. And so that has changed drastically. I'm also a part of FCA. I'm one of the managing committee members. And we have seen the kind of symposium papers that come every year. And they're all asking such radical questions and looking into different fields of inquiry within the settlement pattern in urban studies. And the whole idea of water and is so closely linked with gender. So it
Absolutely.
has opened up so many different ways. You wouldn't think of these kind of symposiums happening at all 30 years back. So that was not there. I think the first one was, I think, in 2002. The first gender symposium was in 2002, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, things have moved very positively. And I see so many women practicing, so which feels so good, which feels so good, and as equal partners in a firm, and not as an invisible behind, which is also very heartening. That you see their names,
Yes,
also their photographs, their images. It makes a lot of difference. At least to me, it does to see other
absolutely.
women.
This was also
And
one of the reasons when I started doing this research there, that many successful male architects, designers, planners in the country, back of the office or managing the office was someone very, very vibrant, very powerful woman, but names were almost not there. I mean, so I had few reasons to why I started doing this study, and this was also one of the key reasons, having seated in Ahmedabad. I mean, yes, when you hear Madhvi, when you hear Meenakshi, you really feel very motivated and inspired. But then there are many more, you know. So, and
yes,
especially if not in Ahmedabad, I will have really difficulty thinking that it will happen in rest of the country, and especially being the mecca of architecture here itself. Uh, Let me move on to a very tricky question and also the penultimate question of our interaction here. As I mentioned, we are inching towards the closure. I would like you to imagine a hypothetical situation. Uh, Having known that still, by the way, the profession is majoritarian male dominated. Even if we are trying to make these small steps and we are also doing a lot, I would also like to share with you that it has not been easy for me to run this research. 90% refusal to conduct or to take interviews. So one of the reason also which I found from my own research readings in the beginning, that women themselves are not comfortable being documented and disseminated, and they don't see the value of it, not only for their own profession career, but I personally feel that if they are not documented and disseminated, it is also a disservice to the profession and the society, and that is one of the reasons why I'm doing this study. So coming back to the question as penultimate, imagine this profession was predominantly women practitioners, educators, architects, whatever you may name it, researchers. What do you think would have been a major difference in the way our built environment is today? I mean, I'm across India, we are seeing the problems we face in built environment, but still keeping the problem word aside, what would be the major changes if the profession was dominated by?
One, I feel as time with another coming decade, etc., profession is going to be dominated by women. If you look at
That's
the
really good to hear.
education, no, it will be, because if you see the education, the number of women students who join into the profession is much, much higher than the men.
Mm,
There are several reasons for that, but we'll not get into it because we don't have time for that. But there are more women in it. And definitely, the one huge change will be it will be the entire the way of looking or putting things together in terms of spatial organization, in terms of architectural practice on site, etc., will be far, far more humane,
mhm,
very humane, because we know what water means in a day-to-day life. We know what
mm,
why a road needs to be safe. We know how what is fear. Like, I have a
mm,
daughter and she has gone
mm,
out. Back of my
mm.
mind, I'm very worried about her.
Absolutely. Children
So
to be in the
yes,
city.
so we and because we know, we give birth, we know the the pain and the anguish it of the entire process. So we know to
Mm,
take care of things. We are naturally
mm,
caregivers and we take
mm,
care of everything around. So I think what we will eventually have is a far more humane, empathetic kind of a design solution for most of the problems that you face today. Because we think we are not really very egoistic unless we
mm,
start behaving like a very masculine, we kind of take on those kind of roles. We are actually very humane. We like to take care of people. We are kind. We are extremely loving. And all our natural resources, we know how precious they are.
mm,
Can you take any settlement pattern, you any in
mm.
any culture, and you see how water is so closely linked with the women's daily routine.
Absolutely.
Who fetches the water for the whole household across cultures? I mean, across geographical boundaries, etc. Who keeps a timetable for in terms of when the rain will fall? When we know the cycle so well, we know the cycle of how things grow, how things are put together, which seed requires what time, because that comes naturally to us. Because hence I always feel that having a woman in an office itself makes a whole lot of difference. Because they will see things. If somebody says that I am now pregnant and I'm due, and so I eventually know what she's going to go through. If someone is
Mm,
menopausal, I know what they are going to go through. So I will take care to make sure that I'm the backup then. So and if there is a girl who's working and it's getting too late, I will make sure that she is free. I'll take her home. I'll drop her back because I know how unsafe the place is. So if I have to design the street, I'll make sure that the place is safe for my daughter. So
Hmm.
my whole understanding of
Every
fear,
daughter should be in that way.
so in every daughter. So my whole point is that our understanding of fear, our understanding of being left behind, of being marginalized is so strong that we will take
Yes,
care of all the other marginalized communities also with as
absolutely.
much. As we shift, and I'm seeing, I always feel this is a very positive shift that's happening with more and more women coming in. Of course, the criticism is that they are not coming into active practice, but that will also happen. I've seen so much changes happening. I think that will also happen eventually. You will need architects. There aren't any men eventually going to join in because of various reasons. It's not so
Hmm.
lucrative, and they need to have the finances and money and etc. and prestige etc. So they may not choose careers which are far more lucrative, but it's not how it is for women. We feel we have the time. We are
Hmm.
not in so much of a hurry for some reasons. I
Hmm.
think because I
Very
think
well put.
we know the value of time is and how effectively it can be used because we have so little.
Hmm.
So we are not in a hurry to catch a bus, or we are not in a hurry to take and it's all right to take a long road. We'll bide our time and we'll get things done. And I think Margaret Thatcher said, no, if you want to talk about something, you tell a man. And if you want to get something done, you have to ask a woman to do it because then it'll get done.
Very,
So
very
yeah,
well
I'm
put.
I'm an optimist. I'm an absolute optimist. I feel things are only going to get better. The more women come into this profession, it's only because it's designing is all about empathy and care and understanding, sensitivity. We have to be empathetic. Without empathy and understanding, how do you even put anything together?
Absolutely. And I think when we are talking about designing cities and neighborhoods, the first thing that has to come is empathy. Uh, and actually, when you talk to women, you hear these words. But when you talk to men, you are straight away starting with anyway economics, then
Yeah.
aesthetics, and then many other things. But this conversation can go on and on how cities and neighborhoods can be bettered, and I think we'll have to keep it for other time. And let me ask you the last question, which is in two parts. And you are very much aware, as I am, that the architecture profession itself is not so well acknowledged and have a standing in the society. So what will be your message for the future generation about the role and responsibility this profession brings, or the beauty this profession brings as a human being, or how you can develop yourself? One part one. And the message to younger generation, irrespective of gender, by the way, how to engender the profession in, and what little things people can keep in mind so that everyone feels inclusive, so that in future, you and I would like to imagine a day when we don't have to discuss gender. We can straight away come to the point and talk about built environment. What will be your message for younger generation?
I I don't believe I am capable of giving a message to anybody because I don't think I've achieved enough. Or I can only speak from the limited understanding I have, which I have gained through last years of diverse kinds of practice. The message would be to be optimistic because I think in
Mm,
our field, in our this particular discipline, like all art disciplines are, uh, one requires a lot of introspection and
mm,
also critical evaluation of what one is actually doing. What is my project, whether it's a research project or is it a kind of an activism that one is engaging in, or it is a design project that you're building up, or it's a development scheme that you're doing in any different modes that you are working with, as to what is the larger question you're trying to address. I mean, who benefits from it?
mm,
And if you can just ask yourself that very question, I think the entire design or your approach and what you are actually going to, the outcome will be determined by that. And many a times in that race to finish to a deadline, or race to kind of get an Instagram image out of your of your creative project, these questions are not addressed at all, and really
Mm,
not addressed. The larger question then becomes: is my project going to drain the natural resource there? Am I polluting? Am I actually this research is going to benefit which community? In what way? This particular text that I'm going to be getting published, will it actually help the reader be a little more sensitive? So there are these, if the master plan is there, have I taken care of everyone?
mm,
Everyone. I mean, across class and caste, as well as gender groupings that we have right now. So these, I think, questioning oneself is a far more important task before we actually get the product out of our system and our mind. So a good question is a very important thing. And introspection, yes. I think all of us need to introspect about our own methods. What are our design
absolutely.
methods? Is it the right way? Is this the only way? Maybe there's another way of doing things. And that's what creativity is all about, isn't it?
Yes,
The idea is not to be different, but to be different in a very positive manner, in terms of that you're making a difference to other people's lives. And that's what Victor Papanik's book is also all about. Actually, that the design would can make a large impact on a very positive impact on a larger group of people, and not just your only client.
mm,
So, yeah, that is something I think all of anyone who's actually listening to us right now, I think they should really think about. And this is what I do. This is what I'm always trying to do, whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I'm writing this paper, is it really of any use, or am I just wasting it? I mean, wasting my time texting all of this nonsense. So that's something
mm.
it's all right to be critical about oneself. We can make mistakes, and
Absolutely.
it's all right. It's all right. It's
I
all right to make
very
go
important
wrong.
points. Yeah, very important message you really actually put forth. Asking questions. It is okay to fail, you know. Being critical about oneself. These are extremely important, and I think it can also not only improve ourselves but also keep us focused as this is our life to serve the society more than actually serving the client. Of course, we have to do the work which we have taken, but there is a larger purpose to life about it. Okay, that brings an end to the questions from my end, but I would still like to ask you if you have any more points which I have not covered in this conversation, which you think is important to really have on record for such kind of biographical note. You may please mention those. And also, this is an opportunity for you to ask me any question if you have.
Um, what do you plan to do with all of these recordings? I mean, it will be on on YouTube and etc.
It
So I
is
was really
already.
wondering, yeah, so
It
it
is
is
already a
there.
series.
So it's an already a series, and then what happens? Is there
Then what
some
happens? Very, very good question. And this is also a common question which comes up. There are two things which are planned. Apart from the implicit agenda or goal of acknowledging and appreciating all what all of you are doing in your lives, as I mentioned, the idea is to put on record that we existed, I
yes,
mean, all of us, and we did some work. And of course, someone can always go to your profession and look at what work you do and all, and find out and also criticize and appreciate your work. But the fact that you as a woman existed and really had a life worth storytelling and conducted this profession comes through this YouTube series, which is I hope it is used. It is quite well received, by the way, observed also by people. And another part of the research is also coming up with a small bio book of all of you. which is in progress.
Okay.
So we transcribe and we are making short stories out of Rajshree the girl.
Yeah.
So very short story, because the idea is not to even over exaggerate, but the idea is, as I mentioned, a very simple line: we walked this profession with
Yes. Yes.
others in there, and the others are always highlighted through architecture, buildings, built environment and all. But I was personally more interested in human subject, just like you. I took this as a research on human subject than the architecture. And honestly, when Madhvi's book came out, it's good that we are talking to about Madhvi today quite a lot. I was with her a few days ago in Bhubaneswar, in Cuttack,
Okay.
on a conference on spatial planning from gender perspective. We both were keynote speakers there. Now, when Madhvi's book came out, we both were teaching together here in Ahmedabad at Nirma University. Until that time, for nearly more than a decade, I was sitting like a duck on this idea of doing something on women in architecture, but it wasn't clear to me where should I focus, and I was reading, and I realized that the problem is all over the world. It's not only in India. Having a career with a spouse from the same profession, and still facing so much of gender problems, uh, gendered problems. When Madhvi's book came out, it was crystal clear for me what I would like to do. So I'm always thanking Madhvi for it. I was clear that I would like to focus on the human subject, not on the built environment. And I think that was the year when I actually started the project. So,
Okay.
so thanks to her.
Oh, that
So
is
we do wish to have a small booklet, and we are calling it coffee table book, sorry. And that will be the product, I must say, end product or outcome of this research. And the aim is to at least have 100 women, so that we have substantial number. Actually, I could have finished 100 right from Ahmedabad itself, but I wanted to have a good. You will see the map also in our YouTube, where we have a footprint across India. Still struggling from North India and Northeast India. So if you know someone, please help us connect. And as I also mentioned to you, we have
I will. I will.
90% rejection. 90% rejection after my respondents are giving me contacts. Uh, and this is where my concern gets further cemented, that women themselves don't feel that it is important to document their lives. That was also my early research finding, that women themselves have not made their documentation, their projects, they are not entering much competition, they are not having their website. I should not use the word going gaga about themselves, but still, telling what they know in terms of sharing. And also, why not appreciate self appreciating your work, or getting into some competition, making it strategically self promoting. So I thought, if they don't have time to do this, I have all the time in life to do this, because I was interested in the subject, and also I really like to listen. So I'm listening. You have one of the student listening. So we do hope someday that a coffee table book will come. It's not going to be a difficult book. Um, but I think after we reach the 100, we would like to have it published. So you are at 61 number, so we are not there, but we are going there.
I can help you with getting couple of more contacts from the Northeast. There are
That will
architects,
be
women
nice.
architects practicing. I'll write an email to you so I can share their
Sure, sure.
contacts too.
Please do that,
I
and tell
also
them
feel
that
you
it
should
is
do
not a
something.
difficult conversation.
No, no, I'll take care of that. And I also feel you should do something with water in a far more serious way, because I think it affects with the climate change and the shifts
Indeed,
in the weather pattern. The water affects women in the rural areas so dramatically, and I think a lot of serious work is required in
absolutely.
those lines. So yeah, so
Actually,
I'll
yes.
something.
Actually, the water sector is still having the same gender issue, or it also requires engendering. But your observation is right that so much to be discussed. But do watch our another YouTube channel on water, which is from W for W Foundation. The foundation I have started some years ago, and it
Okay.
is such a rich repository of over 600 experts across the country talking about water on varied subjects. So if you are also interested, I would love to have a conversation with you as a panel discussion. In there, we are having more of taking a topic and having a panel discussion. But water is my main research subject. This is something which I do because it's an inner calling. I would like to do. Very similar to this, I am also running a series on women in water, like women in
Okay.
architecture. So it's another biographical journey which I am taking up. And as I love to listen to all of you, I mean, I don't have much to say, honestly speaking, so I love to listen. So that's a good way. Thank
That's
you
how I
so
think
much, Rajshree.
that thank you
Go
so
ahead.
much, Mansi. This was such a lovely thing talking to you. I wish I had more time to yap with you a lot. So much to share. And yes, I will go through the YouTube channel on water. I'm very keen about that because I think there is a
Sure.
lot to be addressed in all states. I mean, even in Kerala,
Absolutely.
though we have a lot of rainfall, etc., and we have 44 rivers, but yes, there is a lot to be done because I think a whole lot of the riverbed areas are all getting lost for various reasons in different places. So yes, we need to have a conversation on that sometime. So I'll get
Yes,
back to
sure,
you.
sure. Definitely looking forward to having you on Wednesdays for water sometime very soon. Thank you so
Then,
much. Thanks a lot.